Durin is just about a day away and is a character a lot of people are looking forward to summoning, but there's also a lot of people on the iffy side if they should pull for him. Today I'm mainly going to be going over his roles, some generalist team ideas that he's also good on, and reasons to pull or reasons to skip. So Durin himself actually has a lot of value in his kit, but of course that will be subjective depending on your account if he is good for you. Durin is a very strong sub DPS that focuses on Pyro app as well, but he also does actually have the potential to be a main DPS depending on your team, and actually a really good one at that. But for simplicity's sake, I'm mainly going to be looking over his sub DPS role on the teams that he is good on. Durin is a very unique character who also does have two different forms that have different effects, which allows you to manifest the Dragon of the White Flame form or the Dragon of Dark Decay form. When you use his skill, if you do just use it once and have the confirmation of a purity, that will be the way you can enter the Dragon of White Flame after you do use the ultimate. So pretty much going into that state in the skill and then using ultimate will let you enter that Dragon of White Flame state. And if you tap it twice, you can enter the Denial of Darkness, which will allow you to enter the Dragon of Dark Decay form. So when you do use his ultimate in that case, when you are using that skill, he will instead use the burst principle of darkness as the stars smolder. Both of these have different effects. If you do take a look at one of his passive talents, Dragon of White Flame will be for when triggering Burning, Overload, Pyro Swirl, Pyro Crystallize reactions on an opponent, or deal Pyro or Dender damage to an opponent affected by Burning. Their Pyro res and res for the corresponding element involved are decreased by 20% for 6 seconds. So you can get an Animo res decrease, you can get the Pyro res decrease at all times, you can have Geo res decrease, you can have Electro res decrease because of Overload, and so on and so forth. And entering Dragon of Dark Decay will increase Durin's Vaporize damage by 40% and melt damage by 40% as well. So pretty much if you want to focus more on the DPS side of things of vape and melt reactions for Durin hyper carry, running him on a vape or melt team and having him go in the Dragon of Dark Decay form would be how you do it. Another big benefit of Durin is he is a part of the Hexarray characters. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, I do not actually know how to pronounce it. If you don't know what that is, it is a pretty big selection of characters who are overall receiving a buff, and Durin is going to function very powerful beside them. Those characters are Razor, Venti, Klee, Fischl, Albedo, Mona, and Sucrose. And as we did go over his kit, he can trigger reactions with all these characters: Pyro Swirl from the Animo ones, Overload with the Pyro ones, and Electro ones, Geo Crystallize with Albedo, and for his DPS side of things, you can do Vaporize with Mona. He is going to count as a character, and if you don't know, you do need 2 of the Hexarray characters in a team to trigger the full Secret Rite effect, and is how you get the full effect of the character buffs. And because he functions alongside them really well and is considered one himself, you will be able to fully access the team's potential. And another really big benefit for Durin himself is, I did mention at the beginning how he is a sub DPS, or his main looked upon role is a sub DPS that can also apply off-field pyro, which is really sought after. Since he's another addition to there, it can help you free up your Shangling for a different team, or if you're using Malvika instead, you can actually sub her out as well on those teams. You're not only required to run him on the Hexen teams, that's where he will function the best to activate the effect with others, but he still is going to be a really strong off-field pyro app for characters who do want it, which is a bunch of teams. So any team you are using someone like Shangling or Malvika on, and maybe you've been wanting to use them on a different team, but you're not able to since there's not many other options, he is going to be the brand new addition to that, where it's also really strong. So yeah, Durin has a bunch of teams you can run him on. Once again, for his own DPS, if you're running him as the main DPS, you'd mainly put him on Vaporize or Melt. So setups with Sitlali and setups with Mona will work really well. And then for other teams where he is going to be the sub DPS, he is going to provide a massive shred, which actually does get further enhanced if you do have the Hexarray Secret Rite effect active. His Secret Rite effect increases all effects of the Ascension talent, Light Manifest of Divine Calculus, except for duration by 75%. So the effects get increased by 75%, which is a massive increase to not only himself, but maybe running a more supportive side team that also does have the Hexarray effect active. That red shred is going to get enhanced by so much. So that's going to be great for any of the on-field DPS or any of the sub DPS that is going on that team as well. And if you're running him main DPS, then that much bigger of a difference to his damage as well. You can run him on Chlorinde Overload, you can run him with Chaska as well. Keenage teams work really good. Albedo teams, especially with the new Hexen buff, are also really strong. But of course, that would change depending on who the DPS is on the team, so on and so forth. So he does have a lot of value as a character if you are seeing yourself running these teams. So really good team variety, functions functions really well as an off-field sub DPS that works on many teams. He can even work on the Shao team as a replacement of Burina, especially since on the team you can actually trigger the Pyro Swirl. So Animal Red Shred plus Pyro Red Shred, so he does more damage and your Shao would be doing more damage. A very strong sub DPS slash support for a generalist role. Now, reasons why you should pull for Durin. One of the biggest reasons are if you're interested in running the Hexen buffed characters teams, like you want to have combinations of them, Durin is going to be with a lot of these characters. If they're a DPS, Durin is often on their best team. It can work really well alongside characters like Albedo. If you want to run them and swirl shenanigans for other teams, pretty much any form of combination of the Hexen characters buffs, if you do want to run them, he is going to be really valuable. The ability to swirl practically any element that you do get the reaction with, that does fall under the capabilities of his talent. They are going to get a massive increase, especially with the Hexen Secret Right buff up. So that's going to be one of the biggest reasons you do want to pull for him. If you want to run any combinations of those teams, he's going to have a very good value. If you're in need of a Pyro DPS, and honestly just like a Pyro main DPS, and you like Durin maybe over the other characters that already exist for Pyro main DPS, maybe you don't want to pull for Malvika or Arlecchino, he actually does perform really well. He might not be better than those characters, but he still is a very strong character that can help you clear endgame as a main DPS as well. So if you're not interested in pulling the other Pyro main DPSs, he is an option you can use instead. So if you're in need of a Pyro DPS in that case, then he can be really good. If you also have Xiangling and or Malvika being overworked and maybe you have other teams you want to run them on, you can put Durin on those teams as well, as his off-field Pyro app is really good and also not really needing to have a crazy energy requirement, so building him is also relatively easy. His off-field Pyro app is going to be really strong for damage and also just good application overall. Because of that, you can very much use him for a Malvika substitute or a Xiangling substitute, and if that does help you free them up for a different team that might need them more or less, or at least need them enough to function well, then it is a really good option to pick them up for that role as well. Reasons why you shouldn't summon is a few reasons specifically. If you're not really interested in the Hexarray character buffs and teams around them, maybe you don't really use any of the characters, or maybe you don't even need like the double effect active for them, then you wouldn't really have a need to have him be there to activate it. Maybe you have a team combination of the other characters, because you don't just need Durin to activate it. He's not like the core of it. You can run 2 of the Hexarray characters outside of Durin, so any of the ones I did mention getting buffed, those characters can also just activate if you have 2 of them. It's 2 of any, not 1 plus Durin. So if you have a combination of them outside of wanting Durin, in that case you wouldn't really need to get him, so you could in that case feel free to skip. Another reason is if you don't really need a sub DPS, and especially if you do have Malvika and she's not overworked, a big point of Durin is being able to take over Malvika's spot on the team, so you can run Malvika as main DPS because she's better in that way. Since Malvika is a really strong sub DPS for teams with her Pyro app, but also at the same time one of the best DPS for a main DPS in the game. Hence why if you are already using her as a sub DPS and you don't really have a need or want to change her to a main DPS or have other teams to use her on, you're not really going to need Durin in that case either. Since he's not replacing Malvika as a sub DPS on a lot of teams, he's mainly only just a side grade or sometimes a slight downgrade. Of course, that does change depending on the team, but in any case, if you are already using Malvika as a sub DPS, she's not overworked, you're not really needing her to run as a main DPS or put her on other teams as a sub DPS, then Durin wouldn't have too much value for you. And then, of course, if you're not interested in running him as a main DPS, maybe you already are running Malvika main DPS, or maybe you still run Arlecchino main DPS, then in that case, you wouldn't need him as a main DPS either. So if you're not in need of the Pyro app off-field, maybe you just don't use off-field Pyro app, you have teams that don't need it, you're not going to use Hexarray combinations, or if you are, they already have 2 of the other characters on the team that you are planning to run, and you are not really in need of a main DPS for Pyro, in those cases, I would say feel free to skip Durin. And that is it for the video, mainly talking about what Durin does and what makes him a really strong generalist sub DPS slash support, and also his main DPS capabilities. Some general team ideas on where he can work. Of course, definitely go check out a guide from a different content creator to see the full extent of the teams he can be run on. I was just giving basic examples on where he can work, and then talking about reasons why you should or should not summon. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and to the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all types of style content. Check the description to join the Discord server and check out my Arc Knights channel, and I'll see you later. Peace out.